He's back, and he might be in deep, deep trouble. Tony Ferguson, the legend, the man who we all grew up watching. Tony Ferguson, I mean, my goodness, the man is back. And he's back in a boxing setting versus this influencer boxer named Salt Papi, the Filipino boxer. And let me tell you this. Yes, Tony Ferguson is a legend. Yes, Tony Ferguson had at one stage the longest win streak in UFC lightweight history. But let me tell you this, the man is in deep, deep trouble this weekend, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. Tony Ferguson, what can you say about this fight? I mean, listen, you know why Tony Ferguson is the definition of finished? Because before he left the UFC, the man broke the record for the longest losing streak in UFC history. How crazy is that? The man went from having the longest win streak in lightweight history to the longest losing streak in UFC history. What does that tell you? That tells you that Tony Ferguson is simply done. The man is done. And not only is he finished, but he's fighting someone, believe it or not, dangerous. Listen, this man, Salt Papi, is dangerous. He's a puncher. And punchers are not made, they are born. And if you look at the man's knockouts, the man puts people to sleep inside the boxing ring. And listen, the man's idol is Manny Pacquiao, fellow Filipino. And both of them, just like Manny Pacquiao, Salt Papi is a southpaw. And Salt Papi, he knows, I watched a few fights of him before this video. And let me tell you this, I'm impressed. I am very impressed by Salt Papi. And I believe that Tony Ferguson, his style, is tailor-made to get absolutely pieced up and annihilated and knocked out by this young influencer Salt Papi. Let me tell you this, even though we have never seen Tony Ferguson in a boxing ring, in a boxing setting, but from his style, if you actually think about it, the man is one of them. One of them people who switch stances for no rhyme or reason, just to give you awkward looks. But when you do that, more times than not, you get caught standing square. And let me tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, no matter how good of a switch hitter you are, you always have one side that's better defensively. And I believe Tony Ferguson, his better defensive side is when he's in the southpaw stance. But a lot of times he likes to switch his power hand from lead hand to backhand, and that gets him in a world of trouble. We've seen it time and time again. When he fought Gaethje, yes, this is not an MMA fight, so Salt Papi will not be able to chop Tony's legs. He won't be able to, I get it. But let me tell you this, Tony Ferguson, not only is the man's style, was built, completely built on his toughness purely. If you actually think about it, Tony Ferguson never had defense, and his style doesn't age very well, because if you want to have success in Tony Ferguson's style, you gotta be young and you gotta be fresh. The moment you start getting old and the moment you start having a lot of wear and tear on your body is the moment that it all goes downhill. And this is what's happening with Tony Ferguson, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, if you actually think about it, when was the last time that Tony Ferguson won a fight? When was the last time Tony Ferguson won a fight? It was against Cowboy Cerrone. Before the COVID days, it was years ago. I believe nearly 7 years now. But when you talk about 7 years in MMA, it's not like 7 years in life. 7 years in MMA is like 20 years in real life when you talk about the wear and tear and the damage. So in the past 7 years, Tony Ferguson hasn't won a single fight, and not just that, the man got in the past 7 years he got stopped for the first time in his career, got submitted, got finished, quit. The man lost in every single fashion that you can think of. Charles Oliveira took his arm. Benil Dariush took his knee. Gaethje took his chin. Michael Chandler took his soul and spirit and chin by knocking him out cold. Michael Chiesa took his grappling confidence. I mean, every single time that Tony Ferguson lost a fight, he lost it. Not only did he lose the fight, but he lost something massive and a massive chunk of himself in each and every fight. And I'm talking about the 7-fight losing streak, the longest losing streak in UFC history. But more than that, even when the man was on the longest winning streak in lightweight history, the man took unbelievable, disgusting punishment in every single win. That's what's crazy, ladies and gentlemen. Even in his last fight versus Cerrone was completely finished. Took a lot of damage in that fight. The fight before, Anthony Pettis took a lot of damage in that fight, got dropped, got cut. He came back after knee surgery, 4 months after knee surgery. I mean, that Lando Vanara fight, which was, I believe, 10 years ago. Remember that crazy fight? I remember watching it live. That was a crazy fight. That was an unbelievable fight. I mean, Tony got dropped 1,000,000 times. He got dropped like 5 times in the first 2 to 3 minutes in the fight versus someone who never fought in the UFC, Lando Vanata. Even entered the UFC on short notice, on a few days' notice. So when you talk about Tony Ferguson's style, when you talk about Tony Ferguson's defense, most importantly, Tony Ferguson's defense is non-existent, ladies and gentlemen. And this is the most dangerous part when you talk about fighting someone who's sharp and accurate and an incredible counter-puncher in Salt Papi. Listen, just because someone is labeled as an influencer or a dancer or this or that, that doesn't mean that they can't fight. Now, I'm not saying that this man, Salt Papi, will go on to become a professional fighter or an elite fighter. But actually, I just watched an interview of Eddie Hearn saying that this is the only influencer he's ever seen who can actually be successful as a pro. And I believe it. I believe it. Because listen, ladies and gentlemen, this man, Salt Papi, he's a southpaw and he knows exactly how to fight like an athletic, hard-hitting southpaw. And you can tell that the man watches boxing. You can tell that the man thinks inside during that. You can tell that the man got IQ. You can tell that the man has been training for years. And let me tell you this. Not only can Salt Papi fight, not only can he punch, but most importantly, the man can move, the man can dance, the man got incredible footwork. And I believe this will play another massive factor in this fight. Listen, I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, Tony Ferguson is in trouble. I believe that Tony Ferguson, I mean, listen, if Salt Papi's output is low, he's going to beat Tony by decision. If Salt Papi picks up the pace, he's going to knock out Tony Ferguson. No question in my mind. Styles make fights, and Tony Ferguson never fought in a boxing setting. The man, I'm telling you right now, the man will look completely out of sorts and out of ideas after a round or two maximum, probably, when he is inside the squared circle. And like I said, Tony Ferguson's toughness got him out of many violent and horrible situations. But when you talk about his style, he doesn't even keep his hands up. And when you talk about boxing, when you're stepping into the squared circle for the first time in your life, for the first time in your career, I mean, the first thing that you need to do just to protect yourself from the unknown and unexpected, you gotta keep your hands up at least and move your head off the center line. And Tony doesn't keep his hands up, and Tony doesn't move his head off the center line. And I'm telling you right now, Tony Ferguson is gonna get knocked out by a lethal straight left counter punch from Salt Papi that's gonna put him on the deck and stop him. And listen, Tony Ferguson, the man he's in danger. Not only is he in danger in the squared circle this Saturday, but the man is in danger when you talk about... We know what's going on with Tony Ferguson, you know. That police call, that police recording is terrifying. I don't know what to say anymore. All I gotta say is this: Salt Papi is gonna win this fight, and I believe he's gonna look good doing it, and Tony Ferguson is in deep, deep trouble.